So today we are talking about monitoring and analytics in AWS. In our previous classes, we've talked about different ways of securing our AWS environment. We did talk about how you can use VPC to secure your environment, especially VPC flow log. We talk about network access controllers. We talk about security groups. Then we look at other security that other services that are mainly for security. So in today's class, we are going to see how can we monitor those resources that we are securing, or the security tools that we created, and the things that they are monitoring. I mean, the things that they are securing. How can we monitor it? So your security will not be completed if you just create different security tools, you configure things in a more secure way. But if you do not monitor those results or reports the security tools are generating, you are as good as if you are not securing anything. So with that, we're going to be talking about 3 different services in AWS that we can use for monitoring. The first one of them, okay, before I talk about the first one, let's look at the module objective. At the end of today's class, we understand how monitor in AWS works, how you also understand using Amazon CloudWatch and its benefits. You understand AWS or Amazon Cloud Trace services and its benefits, and the third service that we're going to be looking at today. It's going to give you knowledge of AWS Trusted Advisor services. So these are the topics. We're going to look at AWS CloudWatch, AWS Cloud Trace, and AWS Trusted Advisor. So the first one is CloudWatch. An AWS service, a CloudWatch is an AWS service that gives you the complete visibility into your cloud resources and application. With Amazon CloudWatch, you can collect, monitor, and analyze your data, either data from application or data from infrastructure performance. So there are multiple concepts or technologies in CloudWatch, but the major ones are the Cloud Trace, Threshold, Alarm, Action, and CloudWatch Log. So the way CloudWatch works is that when you create resources on AWS, either AWS or on-prem, because you can also use CloudWatch on-prem, when you create resources, those resources, when people start using them or an application start using those resources, you want to monitor the performance of those resources or the infrastructure. So AWS CloudWatch helps us to monitor the performance of these resources. How are they performing? So if you want to monitor the performance of the resources, the first thing you need to understand, or the first thing that you need to have, is what precisely do you want to monitor? Or how would you judge if the resources is working as it should, or if it is not working the way it should work? Well, for you to monitor a resources, you need what is called a metrics. The metrics is what you will use to either it's like a pinpoint. You want to know the specific thing that the application is doing right or not. So a metric is one of the main concepts about the CloudWatch logs, or about the CloudWatch. So the metrics are the data about the performance of your system. When, for example, let's say you create an EC2 instance on AWS. By the time you deploy an application on that instance, you want to know how the instance is performing. You want to know how the instance is behaving. You want to know how the people are using the instance, or how the application is using the instance, or how the instance is communicating with other resources, whether it's communicating effectively or not. So those are metrics that you can monitor. So on AWS CloudWatch, you can collect metrics about the CPU utilization, of an instance. You can collect metrics about disk space. You can collect metrics about disk inputs, outputs, about network throughput or memory processors. You can also collect informations, or like logs. For example, if you have an EC2 instance and maybe you will deploy an application on the instance, if somebody is trying to log in to that application, or somebody is even trying to access your EC2 instance, maybe they're trying to SSH to an EC2 instance, but they are using a wrong credential, you want to know. So Amazon CloudWatch metrics, with Amazon CloudWatch metrics, you can detect if somebody is trying to log in, or is attempting several times to log in on your system. You can easily know, because when you can set a metrics that is going to tell you how many failed attempts somebody has tried to log in. Once you set up a metrics, or you are monitoring a metrics about an application or about an infrastructure, setting up the metrics is not enough. You want to compare that metrics with something, and it is that thing that will tell you whether the metrics or whether the application is performing fine or not. And this thing you mentioned it against is the thresholds. So a threshold is a specific value set for a CloudWatch metrics that has as a trigger for an alarm. So let's say the previous example that I talked about, like somebody is trying to log in into your system and they failed the first attempt. Then they try to log in the second time, they fail the second attempt, the third time they fail the third time attempt. Then you don't want them to just continue trying, because this might be a brute force attack. Somebody might try to brute force into your system. So once there is a failed login attempt for the first time, the second time, then the third time, you want to be aware about that. So one way that you can be aware is that you can set up a metrics that will monitor the failed attempts. Then once you have a metric that is monitoring the failed attempts, then you can set the threshold. Like once the failed login attempt is more than 3 times, then something should be happened, or something should happen. An example for the EC2 utilization, the CPU utilization. When people are using, or an application is using maybe when you deploy an application on the EC2 instance, and the application will be using the CPU on that instance, the more people that are communicating with the application, or the more processes that the application is running, the more CPU utilization, the more the increase the CPU utilization. So you want to be monitoring this CPU utilization, because if a CPU is being used too much, maybe it's being used like 70%, 80%, then you want to be aware, because by the time the CPU utilization reach 100, then the system will be performing extremely slow. It might even crash if you go above that. It's just like somebody is performing above its capacity. So you can, if you want to monitor a CPU utilization, you can set it like 60%, meaning that once the CPU utilization is above 60%, you want to be notified, or you want an action to take place. Once you are monitoring, now you have metrics that you are monitoring. Then once the metrics pass the threshold, then you want to be informed, because even if the metrics pass the threshold and you don't do anything, or you just set it like, okay, you want to know if the metrics has passed the threshold, then that is not enough. You want to be informed. You want to receive a message immediately that something has happened, or you want to be notified on your dashboard that something is going on. So in order to have instance information about the metrics passing the threshold, you want to set up an alarm. So the alarm will automatically trigger once the threshold has been passed. Once the metrics pass the threshold, the alarm will be triggered. So you can see all of them works together. We set up a metrics, and you set up a threshold. Once the metrics pass the threshold, then an alarm will be triggered. Once the alarm is triggered, then you want to do something. Either maybe you go and stop the EC2 instance, maybe you go and scale it up, or maybe you even already set up an auto scaling that will automatically scale the server once it's being overutilized. Just that you want to know, you can still set up an alarm. Or maybe you want to create something else, or you want to inform somebody, hey, go and check this EC2 is raising an alarm. So an alarm can automatically perform an action as well. If the value of the metrics goes above or below a predefined threshold, then alarm will be triggered. Once an alarm is triggered, then the next one is that you might want to perform an action. You might want to do something. So what you can do varies. One, you might want to create an auto scaling, as I said earlier. You might want to just send a message out, or you might want to create another instance to support the current instance that is being over or underutilized. So the other one that is not here is the log, CloudWatch log. I didn't put that one here, but I will explain it. Log, or let's just put it in full, CloudWatch. This log is where the metrics are stored. I mean, where the information or the logs about the metrics are stored. Maybe, for example, you are monitoring the people, the total number, or anybody or anything that they do on your account. You want to monitor it. If somebody goes to your account and let's say you create a bucket, or you create an EC2 instance, that's an activity, so that is an event that took place. So the event will be recorded as a log, and it will be stored inside a CloudWatch log. And events can also be stored inside an S3 bucket, but since this is not an S3 bucket class, we are going to focus on CloudWatch log. So any log that you are monitoring, or metrics that you are monitoring, once the metrics pass greater than or less than whichever the metrics you are monitoring, once it passes the threshold, then you want to raise an alarm. And the alarm can go ahead and perform an action for you. So this is how all of them works together. Now let's go to the console and let's see how CloudWatch logs look like. So this is my AWS account. If you want to create a CloudWatch logs or alarm or metrics, just go to CloudWatch. You can search for it, or you go to recent visits. So here is the CloudWatch dashboard, page. So now that we are here, the first thing that you want to do is that you want to create a log where the log will be kept. So I'm going to create a log here. You can use this for log, or if you just want to monitor things, then there's no need for creating a log. If you just want to use it for monitoring. So don't let me create this. Let's just go and use it for monitoring. So what I want to do now, let's say we want to monitor. Let's say we have an EC2 instance that is currently running. Let me see. I'm going to open another tab for EC2 instance. So currently I don't have any EC2 instance running. So I'm going to start one of the instances that I have here. So let me start this node 1. So the node 1 is currently working now. So I want to monitor this node 1. So for me to monitor the node 1, I'm going back to the, you can come here under monitoring. You see, these are different things that you can monitor. And all of this, AWS already created a metrics there are some metrics that they already created that you can just use out of the box. And there are some metrics that you can create by yourself. But since we want to monitor the CPU utilization, and they already created a metrics for that, I'm just going to use the one that AWS already created. So I can run the alarm. Oh yeah, if you refresh it, it's going to later it's going to start monitoring it. But this is not where I actually want us to monitor this from. So I'm going to go back to the metrics here. So you can see these are different metrics. On EC2 alone, we have 230 different metrics that you can monitor. But what I actually want to do, because the AWS already created the metrics, I'm not going to be creating the metrics. Then for me to actually monitor the metrics, I want to have a threshold. Then I also want to have an alert that is going to be triggered once the threshold, once the metrics passes or greater than the once the metric greater than the threshold. So I'll go to alarm. I want to get to all alarms. I'm creating a new alarm. Then I'm going to select a metrics because you have to, and a metrics has to pass a threshold for an alarm to be triggered. So I'm selecting metrics and I can pick any of these metrics. So I'm picking from EC2, and per instance metrics is what I want to monitor. So I will look for normally I'm supposed to be able to search from here, but this search it has not been working. So I'll just look for that instance that I just turned on now. It's called node 1. I will do something here, CPU utilization. Okay, so this is the node 1. So you can see this is the node 1 that I want to monitor. And if you see here, it's currently running. It's currently running node 1. So that's why I selected it node 1 here. So all I just need is to select these metrics. I can see that the metrics that I selected for the node 1 is CPU utilization metrics. So I'm going to select that. Now that I've selected the metrics, and I just want to say I want to monitor these metrics, the minimum that you can go is 5 minutes. Anything below that 5 minutes, you're going to start paying for that. So I'm just going to leave it on the 5-minute time frame. Then the condition, which is the threshold now. The threshold is this condition. So what we want to do here is that anytime this metrics is greater than, that's why I select greater than, whenever the CPU utilization, which is the metrics, whenever it is greater than maybe 80, let me just use small number. Let me say whenever it is greater than 50%, then what do we want to do? I'll just go to next. Then this is the action now. So whenever the metrics is greater than the threshold, which is the 50%, then I want it to be in alarm. Then I also want to, you can do different things. This is for notification. If you just want to notify somebody that, hey, the metrics has passed the threshold, then just for an information purpose, then you can create notification. You can also set up a Lambda action that can do something on your behalf. You can use it for an auto scaling, that an auto scaling should be started, or you can do an EC2 action. Let's see the EC2 action that you can do. If you are doing EC2 action, you can either stop the instance, terminate it, or reboot the instance. But I'm not going to do any one of these. What I just want to do is that once the instance pass 50% CPU utilization, I want to be notified. So I'm going to set up a new SNS, create SNS, and I'm going to put in my email here. So the SNS need a topic. I'm just going to call it CloudWatch. Let me call it EC2 utilization, EC2 CPU utilization. I can type CPU utilization, EC2 CPU utilization alarm. So I'm going to add my email here. That is where it's going to send the information. Then I'm going to create this. Once you create this, you have to go to the email that you used. You have to go and confirm it. So I'm going to open the email. Let me open that on another tab, but I'll show you. It's currently loading. It's currently loading, almost there. Okay. You can see this is the AWS notification subscription. So you will receive this email. You can see 1 minute ago. Once you receive this email, you have to click confirm. Otherwise, you won't be receiving anything. So once you receive confirmed, then that is all. So once the CPU utilization is above 50%, an alarm will be triggered and it will send you an SNS. It will send you an email that something is going wrong. All right. So that is not all. You have to do that. Then we still need to continue. So you can set up EC2 action, or you can set up an system manager action, but we only just want to be notified, and that is all. So I'm going to click next. And here is you have to give the alarm a name. I'm going to call it EC2 alarm. So this is everything. I'm just going to leave here, and I'm going to click next. So here is the metrics. You can see currently this is where the metric, the CPU utilization is less than 5%. That's why it's showing you it's less than 5%. So once it is over this 50%, because we select 50%, once it is over this 50%, then it will send us a message. It will send us a message. So I'll just go down and click create alarm. You have to wait for the alarm for some time, so that, because initially on that state, it will be showing insufficient data. So you want to wait for it for some time until it is okay. Once it is okay, then that's when it starts working properly. But I'm not going to wait for this. I will need to go to my EC2, because currently I'm not using the EC2 for anything. So it's not going to be more than, it's not going to rise up to 50% utilization. But I can manually put a stress on the CPU so that I will just fake it, that it will use more than 50%. I will put a manual load on it so that the CPU utilization will be more than 50%. So the first thing I need to do is to first log into the CPU. So connect to the CPU. So I'm connecting to it using the EC2 instance connect. You can connect to the CPU anyhow. We've talked about different means of connecting to your CPU. You can use the SSH client. You can use SSM, anyhow you see fit. So now I'm inside the EC2. So what I want to do is that I want to download. The first thing is always update your server. I'm going to do sudo apt install install update. Apt get update. It's sudo apt get update. So my system is being updated. That's the first command that you want to run. You want to update your system. Once the system is fully updated, then you want to install Stress. Stress is a software that you can manually control to stress your system, just like you fake it, like putting manual load on your system. So to install that, I'm going to do sudo apt install stress -y. So stress is being installed on my system, and once the stress is installed, then I can stress the system manually. So for you to run the stress, you can just type stress. Then what do we want to stress? The CPU. So that's the CPU. Then I'm going to give it a number threshold. Then I'm going to give it time too. I should stress the system and once it is like let me just give it 2000 minutes means like 2 minutes, 2000 seconds means like 2 minutes. So I'm just going to give it this command, then I'm going to press enter. So what it's doing behind the scene is that it's dispatching some pulse on the CPU. So it's going to, this is like manually overstressing the CPU. So you can see that when we go back to our CloudWatch log, CloudWatch, the alarm is now okay. So meaning that you can now start monitoring for metrics that pass the threshold. So here now, I'm going to open this so that you can see the, let me close this. You can see the usage is started gradually increasing. So let's refresh again. You just give it some time because it will be gradually increasing till it pass the 50% threshold. And immediately once it pass the 50% threshold, we should receive an alert. Let me see, this is still working. Yeah, it's still working. So we just need to wait for it. You can see it started going up. So the threshold, once it passed 50%, then it's going to send us an alarm. So I can quickly go to my SNS and see SNS. I'm going to open another tab for SNS because we created an SNS topic, but we didn't create it directly from the SNS page. We created it from the CloudWatch page. But I just want to check here if my topic is created successfully. So I'm going to see topics, and this is the topic here. And let me see, do I subscribe successfully? If you go to subscribe, yeah, it showed that we successfully subscribed. So we should receive a message once the CPU utilization is, you can see it's still going gradually. So once it passes 50%, it will send us a message. So you can also try this on your own system at your own free time. But I want to, let me see, have you sent message yet? No. Okay, look at it here. We receive a message. I can see it 0 minutes ago. So the message just came in. And let's go. No, this is the alarm here. Let me close this. This is the alarm here. And it says the threshold crossed data points and was greater than the threshold 50% minimum data point. So what is just telling us that it has passed the threshold. You can, there's a way that you can redesign this email to look more better, but I just use the default email. So let's go back to the alarm. You can see the alarm has been triggered. If you open, you see we have one alarm. And if you refresh this, you will see that the line has crossed the 50% threshold. So once immediately cross the 50% threshold, this system goes into an alarm mode and SNS sends us a message. So everything works fine. And so this way, if you are, maybe you are using your instance and you set an alarm, immediately you receive this, you should know that if you are deploying an application on that server, then you should stop immediately. If not, you will just crash the server. So that is how CloudWatch logs works. And this is just the basic. There is a lot of things that you can do with CloudWatch log. And when we get to the main solution class, the solution architect class, I will show you how you can install the CloudWatch agents on any server, even server that is working on prem, that is not on AWS. You can install a CloudWatch agent on the server. And if somebody attempts to log into the server or attempts to connect to the application that run on the server, you can monitor that and you can send it to CloudWatch dashboard. All right, this is the end of the CloudWatch logs. If you have a question, you can post it in the comment section. If I say it, I will attend to it. Otherwise, do you guys have any question for me on CloudWatch log, on CloudWatch general?
For me, no. It's pretty clear.
Okay, so if there is no question on the CloudWatch, let's go to the second monitoring tools, which is the CloudTree. But before I go to the CloudTree, let me tell you the difference between the CloudWatch log and the CloudTree. CloudWatch log is mainly used to monitor application performance, either application or infrastructure performance. So the main thing there is that it monitors performance. Performance. Let me put this here. And the performance can just be like maybe somebody is trying to, or let's just say if it can AI performance, application performance, like EC2 server utilization, disk utilization, input output utilization, swap usage, and things like that. Why the CloudWatch is used to monitor events. Like if somebody go into your AWS account and create a service or create a resources, then that is an event. So that is what CloudTrail will monitor, not performance. It monitor events, not performance. Why CloudWatch monitor performance? I hope that is clear, because that is one of the questions that people do ask in interview. Even my current job, I think I've joined the company like almost 3 years, almost 3 to 4 years now in my current company. This is one of the interview questions. Before I even go for any interview, when the recruiter called me, the hiring manager gave him like 10 different AWS questions to ask. And this is one of them. What's the difference between CloudWatch and CloudTrail? I can never forget, because I was driving home when he asked me that question. So I was, since I know it, I just tell him. All right. So let's go to the next topic, CloudTrail.